Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Mysticsense series episode, all about using multiple tools in a reading. Now, this week is going to be a little different than usual, just like last week, and we are going to be having a masterclass all about how to do this practice, how to use multiple tools in a single session or with a single reading. A lot of people use a single tool, such as the tarot, runes, or astrology, but you can actually use multiple tools, even if they're not related to each other at all, to get an even more detailed and more well-rounded session. You don't have to choose between which tool to use. If you're new to our Mysticsense series episodes, welcome. My name is Phoenix Normale, and I am a Mysticsense psychic advisor on the platform, as well as the host of our podcast series, Mysticsense series, which comes out weekly. I'm so happy you've decided to join us. So go ahead and grab a pen, get a paper, take some notes, and sit back and enjoy this masterclass on how to use multiple tools in a single session or with a single client. So when you are giving a reading with multiple tools, you want to start with one tool, and you want it to be a tool that you're very familiar with, you're comfortable with, you are used to using, you're experienced with, and this is going to provide the basis or the baseline of that session, of that information, of the energy. It can be whatever tool that you feel comfortable with, but I do recommend using the tools that are more to the core of the problem for this baseline energy, personally, my personal preference. And I'll get into that a bit later on as well. And I do want to wrap up this session tonight with a sample reading for all of our lovely viewers. So choose your tool that you have your baseline on, whatever you're comfortable with, you're confident with, you're familiar with, and go ahead and do the spread or do the reading as usual. Now, this spread that you're doing, this is not the full reading. This is just the baseline energies, the core of what's going on. It's the foundation. Now, you're going to pull out your second tool, whatever that is, and that is going to overlay the first layer. So the second tool is going to provide more insight, more depth. It can even be a separate but related question or issue and how it connects to the first layer. So this can be really, learning how to use multiple tools can be a really great way to connect related issues that are not the same thing, but they're interacting with each other. And this happens a lot in more complicated situations where it's not just what he thinks about you. It's not just about your partner, how they feel. It's really about how you feel and how your partner feels about your feelings, and whether they're feeling heard, whether you are understanding that, the expression. There's so much more depth that can go into it besides how does he feel about me. And using multiple tools can really pick apart the different layers of the different energies that are happening, that are going on. Because life is complicated, it's multi-layered, and that's why multiple tools work so well together in this way. So the second tool is going to overlay the first tool. It's going to provide details and depth into what is actually going on in that spread. So for an example, if you are using a tarot spread, let's say you're doing the Celtic Cross, very popular tarot spread, you can actually pull the second tool, let's say you're using runes, on top of the cards in the Celtic Cross spread. And you're going to want to pull it, let's say the outcome card, you're going to pull a rune on the outcome card, and that rune is going to show you a little more depth, a little more about what's really going on in that outcome, what those energies are really trying to convey, the main points of those energies in that outcome card, not just the whole situation, but that card specifically. And you can do this with any card on the spread, any place in the deck on the table. And you can use really any tool to do this as well. And I'll go into more detail about exactly how to do that in this podcast as well. So for example, if you're only using cards, let's say you're using the tarot, you have a tarot spread out on the table, that's your foundation. You can take a second deck or an oracle deck and shuffle that deck over the first spread. You don't want to ask it. You don't want to shuffle it to the question. Like usually when I shuffle to the question. I say, think about your question or topic, and I'll shuffle them and I'll do the spread. With this, you want to shuffle them specifically on top of the energy that is already present in the spread on the table. And you're going to shuffle. What you're doing is you're using that present energy, that information in the cards to charge the new deck to see, okay, what do we do with this? And that's one way that you can do it, to really just layer on that energy. And instead of, shuffling it to the question or the querent, you're going to shuffle it to the answer to the cards. And that way you're really getting deep into what is going on in the table. And this is one way that you can use multiple cards. But there's other ways to use them as well. Another way that you can use multiple tools in a session is by answering separate questions, or you can bring up different topics or relating questions in the reading. So a good rule of thumb that I personally work with is I use one tool per topic, per question. Okay, because the tool has its energy, and when I'm shuffling, when I'm connecting to your essence, I'm connecting to your question. So if you're asking me multiple questions, likely chances are I'm going to be using multiple tools or no tools at all, because each tool is going to answer that energy that you're asking. So that's another way that you can do it. The tools carry the energies of the querent, but they also carry the energies of the questions asked. That's one way you can work with them. Some people work with tools in other ways, as having the tools have the essence of the universe or goddess or God instead of the essence of the person in front of you. It depends on what energies you charge them with, but if you are charging them to connect you with the querent or the customer, the client, the person asking the question, that is the energy that the tool is going to be carrying forward, the energy of that question that they're asking. And so that's why I like to use multiple tools for multiple questions. You can also have a tool for each topic that a client asks. Like you can have a tarot deck for careers only, or you can have an oracle deck for love questions only. And so if someone asks multiple questions, you could say, okay, this is what I see happening in your career, but I see this going on in your love life and relationship. And sometimes, a lot of times, there will be overlap, because your relationships likely affect your behavior, your career, your energy levels, and all of that interacts, because you're one whole person. So we take a holistic view of your life by using multiple tools to get all those energies from all those different areas of your life. So this is also, in my opinion, again, why tools need to be cleansed between every reading, because when you are using the tools, you're connecting with the people's energies, you're connecting with the questions. Those tools are going to pick up that energy of that question of that person. So it's really important to cleanse them, clear that energy, however you do it. I believe we have another episode on clearing tools in the past. If we don't, we will definitely be making one. But it's so important to clear your tools out after every reading, after every session, because you want to get all that energy from the past stuff out in order to bring new energy for new people, for new questions in. And in this case, instead of cleansing the tool and using it for multiple questions, we're simply using multiple tools. And we are using all of the energies to see all of the aspects of what's going on. Again, for example, if you have a tarot deck for careers and an oracle deck for love, you can use that career energy of the client as well as the love energy of the client to see how these interact. Are they similar? Are they different? What happens if you pull a career card and a love card on top of it? How is your job affecting your romance? How is your romance affecting your job? All of those different things, we can look at the relationships between things when we use multiple tools in a single session. So each divination tool type also has its own way of bringing information in. And I do have some props here. I have some examples for you here. For example, the tarot card. They all have different ways, runes versus tarot versus the pendulum. Every tool brings information in through a different way, through a different set of symbols. And each deck has its own personality as well, based on the artwork, based on the symbolism. They're not all the same. And this is a big reason why different people are drawn to different tools, because everyone's unique and the symbols are unique. Like this Five of Fire may be very different from the Five of Wands in a traditional tarot deck, but really it's the same card at its core. Using multiple tools is going to bring through a lot of different angles of how to look at that same information. Someone may look at this card and think, wow, that gives me totally different energies. I'm getting totally different messages from this versus the traditional Rider-Waite Five of Wands. And that's the beauty of using multiple tools, is that you will get different things from each tool every time. And how to layer that information really gives a more holistic, big picture view of what is going on. We gain all those different expressions. We gain all those different symbols. It makes a much richer experience, but it can also be much longer as well in a session. So this is not a good idea for quick sessions unless you're, again, just using them because you don't want to cleanse them between clients. So one of my favorite ways to do this, and I feel like I can elaborate a bit before I move on, is, you know, for example, the tarot to me personally is very detailed. The tarot is very much what is going on in the details. Whereas the runes are more like, this is how it is. Okay, this is how it is. This is what you need to do. Very blunt. But this is more details of, okay, well, this is going on. What are you going to do with this? Whereas this is like, here, like, face it, face your fears. You know, you have to deal with this. So if I want to start with the runes, for example, and on my baseline, I have the, Hoggalaz. Oh my gosh. The hailstorm. Okay. So I have Hoggalaz as my baseline. So Hoggalaz is destruction. It's the hailstorm. It's things falling apart. Let's say that's my base of what's happening in the situation. So I shuffle my cards over the Hoggalaz, not to the question, but over the rune that I chose in that position, what this means to get more details. And I end up with the Chariot. So I could interpret the Chariot based off of its place being Hoggalaz in your situation. Because again, remember, the baseline tool, whatever that is the core of what you're dealing with. It's the foundation, and we're building the details off of that foundation. So if I get the Chariot over the Hoggalaz rune, I could look at that and say, okay, a lot is falling apart right now, it seems, in your life, but really it's because you need to move on from this. You need to move on with your life. You need to move to something greater and leave the past behind, because again, that destruction energy. Now, if I got the Chariot on something like Berkana, which is love, that could be completely different. I could say, this is, you know, telling you to move forward with this relationship, with your love life, be really in tune with your emotions and you know, express them. But because it was on Hoggalaz, the destruction, I'm going to say you need to move on from your past and let go. So very different meanings depending on what is happening. But again, regardless of what you get for the messages, you are going to want to interpret the second tool based on the meaning of the first tool in the foundational place. Now, you can even use third or fourth tools with this as well. If you had a third deck and you want to pull an oracle deck on, okay, I need more information on this Chariot, how do I move on from the past, and you get something else, just keep going and going. Typically, I go as far as 2, but you can get much more detailed into it. And again, remember, each tool has a different way of expressing things and in different forms, and some tools are a lot more blunt and direct, while other tools are more detail-oriented or more elegant, I would say. So you really, using multiple tools, again, brings all of the expressions. You're not limited to the messages that the runes can produce. You're not limited to the symbolism of the tarot. You can use all of the symbols together to get an overarching message of what's really going on in the situation, both on the macrocosm and the microcosm. So some other uses for using multiple tools is with couple readings. This is a application. This is when I actually started using multiple tools in my readings way back in 2019. I was having couples come in and say, we just want a couple reading together. And it's like, oh, do you want a reading each? And they're like, no, we want one reading together. And I didn't know how to deal with that because up until that point, I was used to having, you know, one client, one reading, one energy that I'm tapping into. So my solution to the couple reading, because I really didn't know what to do, I decided to use multiple tools. I would have, okay, like person 1, shuffle this deck, hold this deck, think about your question. Person 2, shuffle this deck, think about your question. And often it would be best if it was the same question, because we do want to have some continuation on it. It doesn't matter what the question is. If it's a general, you could even say, think about your partner while you're shuffling this deck, or think about your partner while you're shaking these runes. And that is connecting this tool to that individual and their energy. So my solution to that then was I would ask each person to think of a question, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, depending on time. And each one would do that, say the answer. Of course, this could be different, right? You think. And then that was how many items of that specific tool I would pull. So let's say person A picks 4, person B picks 2. So the first person has 4, whatever it is, I would put that down as their baseline. Okay. I would interpret that and say, okay, this is what you're experiencing in this relationship. This is how you're feeling. This is what's going on. Sorry, I was going to sneeze. So this is what's going on. This is how you're interpreting your partner's actions. This is how you feel in this relationship. Whatever it is, I would interpret the reading. Then I would take person 2. This is where it gets interesting. The second tool set, and put that on top of the other person's cards. Okay. And that shows me how the other person views their partner in the situation, in the question. It will show me, okay, this person B is feeling this way. Person B is seeing it this way. This is what they're struggling with. And I would interpret that on top of person A to say, okay, person A is in this place of, for an example, let's say person A gets the 3 of Earth, okay, the 3 of Pentacles. Person A is trying to work hard and build something with you as a partnership, and they're trying to create with you. And that's where they're coming from in this relationship. Whereas person B, let's say person B on top of that, the second partner would have got Perthrow. Okay, Perthrow is the rune of mystery, divine mystery, the unknown. So the person B clearly does not understand what the first person is trying to create in the relationship. They say, okay, you're making this effort, you're trying to create something. I don't understand what that is. It's a mystery to me. And now you could also say the first person, it feels like they're not being understood, or why isn't my partner helping me build these things? It's because they don't understand what you're trying to build. So there needs to be more communication. 3 is also associated with communication, so it's perfect. There needs to be more communication about what it is that you're trying to build in this relationship. And if you don't know, and that's the other thing, is perhaps the 3 of Earth, person 1, doesn't know what they're trying to create, and it's causing a lot of confusion or mystery in the situation. That is one example of how you can use 2 tools in a couples reading. And I have found that this is really powerful. Very, very powerful. It is really profound how effective it was. I was surprised since I did not know how it was going to work. I feel like I almost created this divination method of using multiple tools for couples readings. But I don't know. It was what I thought to do. And it was very powerful because it really allows each person to see how the other person views them. It is perfect for those questions of, where is our relationship headed? What do we need to know in this relationship? How does my partner feel about me? You do need to have both people present to do this specific method, but if you do, it's a great way to really see what the other person thinks about you and how they're interpreting your actions. So that is another way to use multiple tools in a single reading. Now, one of the important things when I was doing this method is to use the tool that gives the most direct and the most blunt answers first as your baseline, and then use the tools that give more detailed or nuanced information on top of them as the secondary tool. One example would be I would use the tarot first, I would use the runes first, and then the tarot on top of the runes, because I feel personally that the tarot is a lot more detailed and the runes are a lot more blunt and more general, which can be very deep as well. This way you see the big picture of what's going on as an overarching scale, but you also can zoom in on the details with the second tool set to see what's really going on in the little nitty-gritty details of the situation. I also do crystal ball scrying, and this was actually, when I first started doing readings professionally way back in 2018, this was my signature thing that I did was the crystal ball scrying, and I would use oracle cards as well in a combination reading. Okay, so this is another way. This is a very prime example of what I mean when I said start with the more blunt tool and then follow it up with a more detailed tool. Prime example of this, because the crystal ball is very symbolic. It can be quite cryptic, but it also shows the big picture and the main themes of what you need to know. Very direct, tells you exactly what the theme of what is going on in your situation, but it doesn't give you many details often, in my experience as reading this, as a reader of the crystal ball. However, the oracle cards or the tarot cards tend to give you a lot of detail, but they don't always give you the main answer or the main heavy information. So to remedy that, I would start with the crystal ball, with the main core of what's happening, and I would then pull the card. I need to shuffle my deck, but I would then pull the card on top of the ball based on what I saw. And I would say, oh, 3 of fire. We're on a roll tonight with these threes. I would say, okay, this card is the details of what I just saw. So I would go into detail of like, this is what this means to me. This is what this means to me based on what I saw in the ball. So that's just a little rule of thumb for you. If you're going to try using multiple tools in a reading, it does help to have the more general, the more blunt, the more big picture tool first as your baseline, and then follow it up with the details in your secondary tool. Now, I do want to warn you not to get overly attached to the tools in the reading, okay? It can be super easy, especially when you start using 2, 3, 4 different kinds of tools, to get really overwhelmed, to just say, oh my gosh, there's so much happening, there's too many details, there's too many cards, there's too many this or that. Don't get overwhelmed with it, because you need to remember that the most important tool of all in divination is intuition. It's your own intuition. Okay. So even there have been times even when I see the cards and I say, this just does not resonate with me. This is not what I'm feeling from this situation. This is not what I'm seeing in the crystal ball. This is not what the runes are telling me. This 3 of fire doesn't make sense. I would listen to my intuition above what the card says. Okay. Me personally, because when you are using multiple tools, the energies can get mixed up. They can get a little muddled. It's very easy for that to happen, especially if you're doing it like the couples reading, 2 different people, 2 completely different views coming together into one reading. It can get very confusing. So always listen to your intuition first. Your intuition is the most important divination tool of all. And these other things like this are just simply here to aid that intuition, to aid that understanding and that connection to the information that we're receiving from wherever it comes from. So yeah, so definitely experiment with this. Think about what tools you can use. You can even use the pendulums. I don't use pendulums anymore, but I think it would be fascinating to see how the pendulum would interact with a multi-tool reading as well. You could use it as confirmation. At the end of the reading, you could ask, if you need more cards. You could even use it as a map to have you show you where to move to next, which card to put which rune to put the card on, or whatever the situation is. But don't be afraid to use multiple tools in a reading. It's a very powerful thing, especially if you are dealing with multiple questions or multiple situations. Now, I do want to go a little bit more into something I mentioned earlier in this episode, was that sometimes questions and situations may appear to be completely not related, but they actually do intertwine with each other. So a lot of times on Mysticsense, we get one person with a lot of questions. And this is difficult for my tools because oftentimes I charge them based on what the client is asking. So I get the information based on what the client is asking. So a lot of times when I get multiple questions, I either use multiple tools or I use my intuition and read without a tool. However, you can read the multiple questions with the multiple tools and then cross them over each other. Because again, people are multifaceted. We are not just single. Your career is not the single thing of your life. Your romance is not the single thing of your life. What else? Your spirituality is not isolated in your life, okay? Your emotional place, how you're feeling, is not an isolated situation. Your career affects that. Your finances affect how you're feeling. Your love life affects your emotions. Your love life may affect your finances. It all interacts with each other because it's all part of the same person and the same experiences in life. Okay? So this is why it can be helpful to take those multiple tools from those multiple questions and cross them over to each other to see how your finances are affecting your love life, how your spirituality is affecting your emotions, etc., etc. And that can be a really powerful way to get a big, overarching, big picture of what truly needs to be adjusted, what truly needs to be looked at. Because sometimes we won't find an answer in an isolated question, but we find it when we look at the overarching picture of what's truly going on in a holistic way. And multiple tools allow us to do that. So I'm going to wrap up with a sample reading of how to do this, how I do it personally with my multiple tools. So I do read the crystal ball, and I do read runes and tarot. I'm going to start with the heaviest tool. I personally take my glasses off when I do a reading because I feel like it is a barrier between me and the tool. My personal opinion, my own personal limiting belief perhaps, but if you believe something, it's going to affect your energy. So I take it off and I will cleanse the tool, however you want to cleanse it. And then I go into my meditative state for scrying. So for the sample reading, what do our viewers need to know? So I'm seeing for our viewers, and this is a general reading for our viewers. I am seeing, I don't even know what that's called. It's that the wind, like the little chicken that goes around and spins and shows you which way is east, west, south, and blows in the wind. I don't remember what it's called, I'm sorry. But I'm seeing one of those. They're often on the top of houses. It's blowing and it's changing direction. So the wind is changing direction for our viewers, is what I'm seeing from this. A big change of direction. This is going to be something like major. I'm also seeing some seeds falling down from a tree. I'm just seeing the seeds falling into soil and being buried by it. And I'm also kind of hearing like a storm, like thunder happening. And clairaudiently, I'm like hearing the thunder. I'm feeling like there's a big storm coming and I'm seeing these seeds fall. And when I blow into my crystal ball, I'm clearing out what I'm seeing so I can receive new things. So there's some clouds. I often see clouds a lot when I do scrying. And I'm feeling like a sign, just a sign that would tell you something, like on a billboard. I don't see any word attached to it. I just see a large sign from the sky. So with that, I'm going to interpret what I saw. In my symbol system personally, I would interpret seeds as being potential for growth. Something new is growing. It's just starting, but it is happening. It's taking place because of some uncomfortable upset in your life currently. And this is general for our viewers watching. Now to start with the first symbol, the change of direction. So I did see the change, the thing that blows in the wind, it changes direction. It has changed like completely around. So that's our first symbol. That's going to mean there's a major change of direction, a major change in focus for us right now, collectively, generally, and it is providing an opportunity for growth in a very new way. Again, those seeds are falling from the tree because of the storm, because of the thunder. So there's a lot of upset to the system. There's a lot of upset to what we're experiencing, to what we expect, to what our comfort is. That upset is causing this potential for these new things that are perhaps completely different from what we've previously experienced. And those are falling into the soil now to be watered. So you may not even realize that these seeds are being planted in your life or collectively, but they are being planted. They are there because of this change, because of this change of direction, because of this change in weather. Now, as far as the sign is aware, I'm going to interpret that more literally to mean watch out for signs. Watch out for signs of changes happening. You can look for spiritual signs, looking up to the sky. As I saw sky, looking for spiritual signs, but you can also look for signs more like in your life in general. Where are you changing direction? Are your likes and dislikes changing? Are you looking at things differently? Looking at that change of direction, again, going back to the changing wind, is going to help you know where the signs are coming from that you want to look for. So I because I didn't see any words on the sign, it just literally was a blank sign. I'm going to say that these signs are going to be there, but they're going to be different for everybody. So keep your eye out for different signs happening. Follow those signs. Pay attention to them because they are telling you what sorts of seeds are falling, but also where you need to be headed next in order to really enhance this potential that is there. That would be my scrying interpretation during a reading. Now I'm going to take my second tool. So we had the crystal ball. The crystal ball has our collective energy in it because I just did a reading with it. I got that information from it. And I am going to take my second tool. Let's say I'm going to take I'm going to take the cards next because I kind of find it a little bit easier. It's because the crystal ball, I would say, is a very direct and heavy tool. And I use that meaning the information I get is very dense. It's very direct. It's very, it's very much to the point. I'm going to use a lighter tool on top of that, like tarot, which is more detailed and gives more insight into the what to look for. In the details of it, not so much what is happening, but more of like how is it happening and when is it happening. So again, I usually have my ball in the stand so you would be able to see it better, but I'm going to literally hold my deck on top of this ball and shuffle it while I'm imagining that information going into this deck, okay? This is how I'm charging this deck with that information that I just saw. So that is what I'm doing. I'm going to imagine the information going into the deck. I'm holding it directly over the ball, and I would ask my client to think of a number between 1 and 5 at this point because that's how many cards I'm going to pull. And if I'm reading for a client in front of me, I would want their intuition to be an active part of the reading, and that's one way to do it. Now, I am feeling the number 3 coming through, maybe because we've had a lot of 3s so far in this conversation, but because I am doing a sample reading on a collective, I am going to pull the 3 cards. So I am going to put the cards right here. We have 3 cards. Okay, so we have beginning, middle, and end cards. Here we go. So based on what I saw, we have the 8 of fire, the 8 of wands, that would be the 8 of fire to me, and I interpret these intuitively. Again, different decks will speak to different people for different reasons. This 8 of fire, I would say this is a journey that you're heading on, and it's a beautiful journey, but you also have to be open-minded and you have to be willing to see where it takes you. Again, I'm going to interpret this card based on the energies of what I saw in my first foundational tool. I'm going to base it on this because I saw changing winds, because I saw a change of direction, a seed being planted, a new potential beginning in the future. I'm going to say that this is a journey. You're heading towards that potential. Okay. So part of this is leaving behind the past, but being willing to explore and move forward towards that journey and take action for it as well, because action is part of the fire element. Now, the next card we have is the reversed Page of Earth. Now, I do read reverse personally. That's a personal choice. Not everyone does. That's okay. But in this context, the Page of Earth, this would be the Page of Pentacles reversed. This to me is telling me that it's going to be challenging for you. That's how I'm going to interpret it. It is going to be challenging to break free from that comfort. Okay. Yes, adventure is exciting. There's a lot of movement here. The page is also a card about movement and growth. However, because it's reversed, it's telling me it's going to be difficult to make that change, to make that growth, because you have to be willing to leave that comfort behind. And now in this context, I'm interpreting Earth as being comfort because that's a form of stability and security. So that's how I would interpret this card based on what I saw. So in order for that seed to grow, and in order for this change to happen, you are going to have to be uncomfortable a little bit, and be willing to go with the flow, be willing to let behind what was built up with that storm, potentially. And this goes really well with that Hagalaz that we pulled earlier, even though that wasn't based on this reading particular, but maybe it happened for a reason. So our last card is this one. Beautiful imagery. Six of Earth. Okay, Page of Earth and Six of Earth. So Six of Pentacles. There we go. It's reversed. Six of Pentacles. This card is often about balance, if I remember correctly. This card's often about sharing and abundance and balance. And this is also reversed. And now this is again, an earth element. So it is going to be, again, that sense of comfort and that sense of abundance. This is saying this is potentially a time when you might have to make some sacrifices in order for your future abundance to flourish, which is not something people want to hear a lot, but sometimes we need to hear it. So with this situation, if these seeds have a chance to grow and you are going to be taking these opportunities in the future, because remember, a seed is just an opportunity. It's a potential. It's not a plant yet. But in order for this to grow, in order for this opportunity to flourish, we do need to make some sacrifices now so that we can truly give the future what it deserves. Okay, so that we have the energy, we have the resources to nourish and support the future that we're creating. And now all of these things are in support of this idea of a journey of moving forward into a future, which is also based on the Eight of Fire. But it makes sense to me in the context of the scrying. How I interpreted these cards was based on what I saw in my initial foundational tool. That's really the point of this, is that you want to base it on the initial tool, not necessarily on the initial question. Because sometimes we think we know the answer and we don't, and there's a lot more going on beneath the surface than we realize. And using multiple tools can help you see that. Now for a third tool, we have options here. We have choices here. We can either shuffle this third tool on top of the second tool, which we've already interpreted, or we can take it and we can look at the first tool again. Okay. That's going to be up to you and your intuition. We could also ask a similar but different question relating to this. For example, what is going to happen in the outcome? What should I do with this information? How do I move forward? Whatever it is, as long as it relates somewhat to the question, initially, we can use this to see what's going on. And if it doesn't relate, chances are it may, because again, we're holistic people and everything intertwines in some way, shape, or form. So I think I'm going to ask us, what do we do with this? Because based on what I saw out of the ball and based on what I saw out of the cards, I feel like we're given, I mean, it makes sense to me. We're given information here, but I feel like we're left wondering what the best outcome is, what we need to do. Excuse me. So we are going to ask collectively, what does the collective watching this need to do given this situation? What do they need to do in this situation? I'm going to focus on that. I'm also going to focus a little bit on this energy of this situation. What does the collective need to do with this information? And what the cards are saying. What do we need to do with this information? Again, I would ask my client a number between 1 and 5. I'm feeling 2 coming through, so we're going to pull 2 runes and see what they have to say for us. Laguz is the first one. That makes a lot of sense to me. Laguz makes a lot of sense. There you go. It's probably backwards, but Laguz, oh my goodness. There we go. Sorry about that. Laguz is the rune of water. It means the lake. It is literally flexibility. It's intuition. It's spirituality. It's flexibility. It's going with the flow. So the most important thing that we can do with this information, with all of this change happening, with this uncomfortable stuff, we need to go with the flow. We need to be receptive to it. We need to see the signs. We need to recognize these changes, and we have to go with the flow. We have to accept it and allow it to bring us where we need to be. That is the most important thing that we can do, an action piece based on the energies present in this reading, both the cards, both the ball, and generally. And now the second rune was face down, which means it's a less impact, but it's still important. Okay, and that rune is Ingwas. I'll show you the rune Ingwas. There we go. I hope you can see it okay. Ingwas. Oh, there we go. Excellent. Okay. Here we go again. Okay, so Ingwas is the secondary important thing we can do, the action piece. And ironically, Ingwas literally means the seed. Isn't that funny? It's the seed. So this is saying the key to fixing this situation, the most important thing we need to do besides being flexible, going with the flow, which could represent rain, which I think I picked up when I was scrying. I don't remember. The thing about scrying is that I do not remember what I see once I say it. Once I say it and interpret it, it just leaves me. But I do recall saying about a seed, and the growth, the potential. Ingwas is literally the seed. Literally. The most important thing about this is that you are planting that seed for the future. You're planting that potential. You have doors open to you collectively. We do, for the people viewing. There is lots of opportunities. There's lots of doors open for us, but we need to be flexible and willing to let go and willing to change and willing to go on these journeys and change ourselves, in order for us to truly take advantage of those doors that are available, that are open for us. So that Ingwas is the seed, that potential for that growth. That is a very important action piece. And I think that's very interesting to me, that the seed is literally what I saw in the ball. Because I find that this happens often when I use multiple tools, even if they're not even related to each other, that I will get the same meaning repeatedly show up in a reading. It could be relating to different aspects of the situation, or it could be the same aspect, that I will get the same message. And that just tells me to put that in bold, that is what we need to be focusing on. That could be the focal point of the reading. So Ingwas, again, is the seed, it's the potential. So the most important thing we can do with this situation, with this drastic change, with this uncomfortable time, of dealing with this potential lack of abundance, or perhaps need to save. And this page of Earth reverse too is this need to grow, but having difficulty leaving behind the past comforts. The most important thing we can do about that is to remain flexible and to be intuitive and to be open and receptive to these signs spiritually, because intuition is a part of that Laguz energy. And also to cherish that seed and to take care of that seed and that growth, that door that is opening. So that is going to be our action piece for this reading based on the runes, the cards, and the crystal ball. So that is my example of how I would use 3 different tools in a single reading for a single topic for a single person. In this case, it was a general reading for the collective watching this video, but you can do this for a client as well if they have a question. And that is 3 cards or 3 tools used for that question. And you can do this again with any form of question or reading that you have, and it adds so much more depth. Because as you noticed, the crystal ball had, the ball had a very different energy and a very different message, a different way of bringing it through than the cards or the rune did. And the runes had a very different way of bringing through the message and the meaning than the cards did. And the cards brought a lot more different kind of information than the runes or the ball did. So using these different tools in conjunction really helps deliver all of the meaning and all of the messages. It really says this is the most important thing we need to focus on, that seed, because that is what showed up in 2 of the 3 tools. But it also shows us what's going on with the details, how we feel about these changes. It also shows us, perhaps the types of changes. They could potentially be financial, maybe. I don't want to say that for sure because, again, this is a general reading. But because we have 2 earth elements here and they're both inverted, that could potentially be a financial indication, or career development. But there's lots of different ways that we could interpret that. We may not pick that up from the runes or the ball, but because the cards are both earth, it could be another angle to look at this multiple tool reading with. So that pretty much concludes how I personally read with multiple tools. I would experiment with this quite a lot, and I would say try out the couple reading too. Using it for couples is a really great way to see how the other person feels about you. Fantastic. Because again, like I said, we can have one deck. Let's say the cards represent person A, the runes represent person B. How does the runes react with the cards? What happens if I take person A and B and I put them together? And where are they compatible? Where are they not compatible? What are the issues potentially? And what are the strengths involved here? And that is one way we can use, again, those multiple tools to create a holistic, very detailed, very in-depth picture of a situation that one tool itself may not be able to give us. So I do hope that you enjoyed this masterclass on how to read with multiple tools in a single session. And I hope that you've learned something. You can take notes. You can share this with your friends. And if you have any questions about this method or about how I do this, or you would like to get a crystal ball reading, if you really like my crystal ball. Not too many people read crystal balls anymore. I don't know why, because some very famous advisors, very famous psychics historically have read with crystal balls. And I did a masterclass on crystal ball scrying in the past, and it's very interesting how many historical figures actually use a crystal ball, and it seems to be a little less common nowadays. But if you would like your own personalized scrying session, crystal ball scrying, definitely reach out to me on mysticsense.com. My name is Phoenix Normale. You can just search Phoenix. I'll be there. There's a lot of people named Phoenix, but I will be there. I'll be one of them. Definitely check out my page and get a reading with me. Get a session with me, and you can get your very own crystal ball scrying. Or if you would like a reading with multiple tools, just let me know that when you log on the site. I'd be happy to give you a very detailed reading just like this. I hope you enjoyed this generalized reading. Do keep in mind it is general and it is a collective reading. So it may not apply to everybody, but hopefully it resonates with those people that are viewing this and who are looking for some direction or guidance right now. So I thank you so much for sharing your time with me, sharing this hour with me. I hope that you are enjoying our Mystic Sense series and that you're enjoying these master classes that I'm doing periodically as well. And if you have any suggestions that you'd love for us to do a masterclass on, or if you'd love for us to do an interview, a talk show style Mystic Sense series episode on, definitely let me know in the comments. Let us know in the comments. Our team would be happy to accommodate any topics that are spiritual, that are in line with Mystic Sense policies, and we would be happy to accommodate that, to make this educational content for you, because we really want to give our viewers value in their lives, things they can take home and put into practice, and that can change them and can help their spiritual growth. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm very grateful to be here and to be hosting these Mystic Sense series episodes, and I hope you learned some amazing things today on how to use multiple tools in a single reading, and I hope you learned some things you can take home as well. So definitely check out our website, subscribe to wherever you're watching this, and check the link in the description as well so you can get your own reading with me and experience this multi-tool reading process and style as well for yourself. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Phoenix. You can find me on the Mystic Sense platform, and I hope you have a wonderful week ahead.